Khabib Nurmagomedov also weighed in on Topuria's stunning knockout of Charles Oliveira at UFC 317, and while he was impressed, he also issued a subtle warning. Before the fight, Khabib had already predicted that Ilia would win, but after watching how violently the bout ended, he admitted the performance was even more shocking than expected. Speaking with Russian outlet MMA Brotherhood, Khabib praised Topuria's dominance, but added that the real test is still ahead. That wasn't just advice, it felt like a challenge. Topuria has looked unstoppable lately, but if Islam Makhachev achieves his goal of becoming the undisputed welterweight champ, a return to lightweight to face Topuria could be on the table, and that would be the biggest fight in UFC history. Georgia versus Dagestan. Elite striking versus world-class wrestling. History would be on the line. Make no mistake, Team Khabib is now paying attention. Arman Tsarukyan isn't holding back. In a fiery new interview with Daniel Cormier, Tsarukyan ripped into Ilia Topuria, dismissing the pound-for-pound king as nothing special. When asked for his thoughts on Topuria, Arman didn't just downplay the hype. He revealed he was actually hoping Ilia would beat Charles Oliveira. Why? Because in Arman's view, Oliveira would have been the tougher fight. Arman says Topuria might have an undefeated record, but he doesn't pose a real threat. In fact, Tsarukyan believes he would completely dismantle El Matador using his full MMA arsenal: wrestling, striking, and cage control. He even joked that after their fight, Ilia wouldn't be top of the P4P list anymore. He'd be lucky to still be top 15. According to Arman, Topuria's wrestling is virtually non-existent, and when they eventually meet, he plans to expose every hole in the Georgian's game. This wasn't just fight promotion. Arman looked dead serious and full of confidence, and he's earned that right. He's widely considered one of the most well-rounded, dangerous contenders in the lightweight division. Arman broke it down clearly. "I'm not just going to wrestle him. I'll strike. I'll kick. I'll mix everything up. He looks good hitting pads, sure, but this isn't WWE." He also mentioned that Oliveira was a bigger submission threat, whereas with Topuria, he'd just keep taking him down over and over without much danger in return. Meanwhile, Paddy Pimblett has poured cold water on those red-hot rumors that he was set to fight Justin Gaethje at UFC 319. It all started when Drius du Plessis hinted at a potential co-main event featuring Pimblett versus Gaethje. Fans went wild, especially since Gaethje recently mentioned he might retire if he doesn't get a title shot soon, and with Tsarukyan's next bout still uncertain, the timing seemed to line up, but Paddy squashed the speculation fast. He posted on Twitter, "You're mad if you think I'm fighting in August." That all but confirms he won't be on UFC 319, possibly pointing to a return in October, maybe on the Abu Dhabi card, which he's teased before. While dismissing the fight rumors, Paddy also appeared on a podcast with respected MMA coach Eric Nixick. The topic, how to beat Ilia Topuria. Eric broke down the approach: stay at range, use kicks to control the hands, and keep Topuria from setting up his power shots. He praised Jai Herbert for using a similar strategy effectively, and warned that Topuria's biggest threat comes when he traps opponents against the cage. That's where he finishes fights. Nixick said he'd go kick heavy against Topuria, using movement and timing to disrupt his rhythm, and Paddy seemed locked in, clearly still keeping tabs on his longtime rival. And finally, Chael Sonnen is back in the headlines after walking back one of his more controversial leaks. A few weeks ago, Chael claimed Alex Pereira was gearing up for a fight with Tom Aspinall. He even made it sound like he got that info directly from Pereira's camp. But then, Pereira came out and said he's aiming for a clash with Magomed Ankalaev in October, not Aspinall. Now Sonnen says it was all a misunderstanding. According to Chael, someone close to Pereira called him to clarify that Pereira is targeting a move to heavyweight, but not to face Aspinall. Instead, to challenge John Jones. Yes, John Jones. It's a bold claim, and fans are divided as always. Some think Chael might be right, others think he's just stirring the pot again. But while that rumor brews, the heavyweight division is moving forward. Tom Aspinall is now expected to defend his title against Cyril Gane, a matchup that makes sense and has fans excited. What do you think? Could we actually see Jones versus Pereira at heavyweight, and how would Aspinall versus Gane play out? Let's run through the latest matchups added to upcoming UFC events following the UFC 319 pay-per-view. First up, a fresh lightweight clash has been added to UFC Vegas 108, scheduled for August 2nd. As reported by AG Fight, Esteban Ribovics will square off against Elvis Brenner in what promises to be a high-stakes showdown. Ribovics will be aiming to rebound after suffering a narrow split decision loss to Nasrat Haqparast in March, a setback that ended his 3-fight win streak. On the other side, Brenner enters the bout looking to snap a 2-fight skid, including his most recent defeat via stoppage to Joel Alvarez during last summer's Sanhagen vs Nurmagomedov event. Then, looking ahead to UFC Fight Night in Paris on September 6th, another key bout has been booked in the women's division. Yasmin Jaureg's former foe, Anasa Dubin, is set to take on newcomer Kennedy Freeman. Dubin will be looking to bounce back after a tough first-round knockout loss in her UFC debut earlier this year in March. Freeman, meanwhile, makes her first walk to the octagon with an undefeated professional record and the chance to make a big statement in her debut on European soil. Ilia Topuria just made history and did it in terrifying fashion. At UFC 317, El Matador stepped into the octagon against Charles Oliveira for the lightweight title and walked out not only with the gold, but with the title of #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC. And he earned it the hard way, by knocking out a former champ cold in just 2.5 minutes. One massive right hand was all it took. Oliveira hit the canvas unconscious, and the referee waved it off immediately. That KO wasn't just a statement, it was a shockwave across the sport. With that win, Topuria leapfrogged names like Islam Makhachev and Morab Dvalishvili to take the top spot in the pound-for-pound rankings. And honestly, you can't argue it. That level of dominance is rare. Of course, if Islam Makhachev manages to dominate Jack Della Maddalena and capture the welterweight strap, he could easily reclaim that #1 spot. But for now, Topuria sits at the top of the mountain. Speaking of pound-for-pound, current bantamweight champ Morab Dvalishvili had a revealing moment on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. Morab shared that Topuria actually dropped him twice during sparring, and both times from brutal body shots. Here's what he said: "I can't spar with him anymore. He just hits too hard. He dropped me twice with body shots. Thank God my head's fine. Every time sparring ended, I was just thankful it was over. He's that good." Morab also praised Ilia's fight IQ and structure, calling him very organized and always improving. That kind of respect from a fellow champion speaks volumes. Over in the middleweight division, Kamzat Chimaev is gearing up to fight Drius du Plessis for the title at UFC 319. But one of his former teammates, Caio Borralho, doesn't like his chances. Caio and Kamzat have had bad blood for years. Footage even surfaced years ago showing Kamzat submitting Caio in training, though we all know training clips don't tell the whole story. Despite that, tensions rose and there was serious talk of a fight before Kamzat got paired with DDP. Now Caio says he's backing du Plessis in the title bout. And here's why. It's hard to bet against Drius. I've picked against him so many times, and he keeps proving me wrong. If Kamzat doesn't finish it early, things start leaning toward DDP. Caio praised Drius's relentless style and heart, saying that even when he's exhausted, he never stops pressuring. But he also warned, if you make a mistake against Drius, he capitalizes instantly. After knocking out Oliveira, Ilia sat down with Spanish media and revealed what's next. He said UFC President Dana White personally shut down the idea of him moving up to welterweight to fight Islam Makhachev, at least for now. After my talks with the UFC, it's clear they're not considering Islam as my next opponent. That fight's off the table unless something big changes. Topuria still hinted at wanting that third belt, saying post-fight that there's room for one more on his shoulders, a clear nod to his interest in becoming a 3-division champ. But unless Islam drops back down after fighting JDM, that matchup isn't happening. In the meantime, Ilia had plenty to say about 2 other names, Paddy Pimblett and Arman Tsarukyan. Topuria said both are ducking him, calling out Paddy for being all talk, and Arman for always having mysterious back issues whenever he's close to a fight. Arman looked shook when I knocked out Oliveira. He made weight as a backup, but deep down you could see he didn't want that call. Ilia claims if the UFC wants it, and if Paddy agrees, that fight could easily be made before the end of the year. The fans want it. The ball's in Paddy's court now. Even UFC commentators Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier are disappointed that the Topuria vs Makachev super fight didn't happen. During the UFC 317 broadcast, Rogan said Islam was the fight to make. He joked that if he were matchmaker, he'd have called both fighters immediately and made it happen. It's clear Rogan thinks the UFC let a dream fight slip away. And in the welterweight division, things are heating up again between Balal Muhammad and former champ Kamaru Usman. During a recent interview, Balal revisited a rumored confrontation with Usman on the set of Pound for Pound, claiming the situation left Usman visibly emotional. We're the biggest names in the division right now. If the UFC wants a clear no one contender fight, this is it, Balal said. Usman had previously brushed off the idea of fighting Balal after defeating Joaquin Buckley, but given the tension and the growing fan interest, this grudge match might just be too good for the UFC to pass up. Prochazka has officially fired back at Magomed Ankalaev. This all started back in May when Ankalaev, or possibly someone managing his account, took shots at both Alex Pereira and Jiri, accusing them of ducking him. He went as far as calling Prochazka a fake ninja and claimed he needed to go back to school because he can't read. Now that Jiri's done with his studies and focused fully on fighting again, he's not letting those words slide. On Sunday, Ankalaev posted another jab, mocking Alex by saying, "Breaking news, Alex wants to fight me during Ramadan again, and I need more time. And that other clown, Jiri, still needs to do his homework. Let me fight Carlos. He's more dangerous than both." That didn't sit well with Prochazka, who fired back with a post of his own. "Hey clown, I finished university. Like you finished elementary school, I hope. If you don't want me as your teacher now, I'll gladly fight Carlos next." That's it for today's UFC updates. With Ilia Topuria cementing his place at the top, fresh fight announcements heating up Abu Dhabi and Paris, and some serious drama brewing in the welterweight division. Who do you want to see Ilia face next? Drop your predictions in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss a fight update here at House of MMA. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.